Tonight on Gay Timeline, we are turning back the clock to 1905, to a vast country house in the Cotswolds, where dawn breaks over perfectly manicured lawns. Inside, in the servants' quarters beneath the grand staircase, a young man named Thomas is already awake, pulling on his livery in the dark. He is 23 years old. He is handsome in a way the upstairs family will never quite acknowledge. And he is about to spend another day serving tea, carrying letters, standing silent in doorways, while navigating a world of stolen glances, forbidden touches, and a love that could cost him everything. The house above him gleams with Edwardian elegance. The house below him hums with secrets. They had no word for what they were, but they had each other. And tonight, we say their names out loud, because they could not. I am Julian, and this is Gay Timeline, the channel that brings forgotten gay history back into the light, one quiet night at a time. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from and what time it is for you. It is always fascinating to see who is joining us from around the world. For most of history, these men were alone. They wrote letters no one would read. They loved in rooms no one would visit. Tonight, we keep them company. That is all sleep needs to be. A quiet act of refusing to let someone be forgotten. Have you ever wondered what it was like to fall in love in a house full of people who could never know? Have you ever wondered who polished the silver while nursing a broken heart? Who stood in perfect silence at dinner parties, thinking about the man asleep 3 doors down the hall? What did they whisper to each other in the butler's pantry when the family was out riding? What did they write in letters they would have to burn? How did they survive in a world designed to erase them? And what happened when someone finally noticed? Congratulations. You have just been hired as a footman at Witham Park, a sprawling Edwardian country estate in Gloucestershire. You are wearing a livery coat that cost more than your father earns in 6 months. You have approximately 7 minutes to learn 63 rules about where to stand and when to speak. Let us see if you can survive. Good luck. The first thing you need to understand about being a footman in an Edwardian country house is that you are not quite a person. You are a piece of furniture. You are expensive, you are decorative, and you are expected to blend seamlessly into the wallpaper until the exact moment you are needed, and then vanish again the instant your task is complete. Your name is Thomas Bainbridge. You came from a village in Derbyshire where your father is a blacksmith and your mother takes in mending. You are the third of 6 children. You have good teeth, which matters. You are tall, which matters more. And you have what the housekeeper calls a pleasant countenance, which is Edwardian code for handsome enough to serve at table without offending the ladies, but not so handsome that you will distract them from their soup. You arrived at Witham Park 3 weeks ago in early September, when the house was being readied for the autumn shooting season. The estate employs 47 indoor servants. You are one of 4 footmen. The other 3 are named George, William, and James. George is 31 and has worked here for 9 years. William is 26 and bland as milk pudding. James is 24. James has dark hair and darker eyes and a way of looking at you across the servants' hall that makes your chest feel tight. You have never felt this way about anyone before. You have no name for it. You know only that when James passes you in the corridor and his hand brushes yours for half a second, the rest of the day tastes different. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. First, the livery. You are issued 2 sets of livery, everyday and formal. The everyday livery is a dark green tailcoat with brass buttons, a striped waistcoat, black trousers, white gloves, and a stiff collar that will leave marks on your neck by noon. The formal livery, reserved for dinners, balls, and when the family has important guests, is a plum-coloured coat with gold braid, a satin waistcoat, knee breeches, white silk stockings, and shoes with silver buckles. You look, objectively, ridiculous. You also look exactly like every other footman in every great house across England, which is the point. Uniformity is elegance. Individuality is vulgar. The livery is not yours. It belongs to the house. If you are dismissed, you leave it behind. Your quarters are in the male servant's wing, a narrow corridor on the ground floor near the back stairs. You share a room with William. The room measures roughly 8 feet by 10 feet. There are 2 iron beds, 2 wooden chairs, 1 shared wardrobe, a small table, and a window that overlooks the kitchen courtyard. The walls are whitewashed. The floor is cold. The blankets are thin. You have 1 day off per month. On that day, you are expected to attend church in the morning and be back by evening. You are not paid enough to go anywhere else. Your wages are £28 per year, plus room, board, livery, and 1 pair of shoes annually. For context, a housemaid earns £12 per year. A kitchen maid earns 8. The butler earns 60. You are exactly in the middle of the below-stairs hierarchy. Not quite powerful, not quite powerless. You are visible enough to matter and invisible enough to be forgotten. The rules of service are not written down. You learn them by watching, by listening, by making mistakes and being corrected in whispers. Some of the rules make sense. Some of them are utterly baffling. All of them are rigidly enforced. Rule 1. You do not speak unless spoken to. Not to the family, not to guests, not even to the upper servants unless you are answering a direct question. You exist in a state of permanent pleasant silence. Rule 2. You do not make eye contact with anyone above your station. When you carry in the tea tray, you look at the tray. When you open the door, you look at the door. When you stand behind a chair during dinner, you look at the middle distance, at a point roughly 6 inches above the head of the person you are serving. You see everything. You look at nothing. Rule 3. You move quietly. No footsteps on the stairs, no clattering trays, no scraping chairs. If the family hears you, you have failed. Rule 4. You are always clean, face washed, hair combed, nails trimmed, livery brushed, gloves spotless. The family expects their servants to look like they were born wearing starch. Rule 5. You do not have opinions. You do not have preferences. You do not have a discernible inner life. You are a footman, and footmen are interchangeable. Rule 6, and this one is never said out loud, but you learn it quickly. You do not look at James the way you have been looking at James. Not in front of the other servants, not in front of anyone. You do not let your gaze linger when he rolls up his sleeves to polish the silver. You do not watch the way his mouth moves when he reads the newspaper in the servants' hall after dinner. You do not memorize the exact shade of his eyes in lamplight. You do not, except you do. The daily routine at Witham Park begins at 5:30 in the morning. You wake in the dark. William is already up, splashing cold water on his face from the basin on the table. You dress quickly, everyday livery, boots laced, collar fastened. By 6 o'clock you are downstairs in the servants' hall, drinking weak tea and eating bread with margarine. Breakfast is fast and silent. No one has the energy for conversation this early. At 6:15, the housekeeper, Mrs. Dalton, appears in the doorway and assigns the morning tasks. You and James are on hall duty today, which means you will spend the next 3 hours cleaning the ground floor rooms before the family wakes. George and William are on dining room duty. The housemaids are already upstairs, lighting fires in the bedrooms and laying out clothes. The house is waking up in layers, from the bottom to the top, like a body returning to life. You follow James down the corridor to the morning room. He is carrying a wooden caddy filled with dusting cloths, beeswax polish, and a small brush for the picture frames. You are carrying a coal scuttle and a basket of kindling. The morning room faces east. The windows are tall and let in the pale grey light of a country dawn. The wallpaper is sage green with a repeating pattern of silver ivy. There are 2 sofas, 4 armchairs, a writing desk, a pianoforte, and approximately 18 small tables covered in vases, candlesticks, and framed photographs of people who all seem to be named either Edward or Margaret. James sets the caddy down on the floor and looks at you. He smiles. It is a quick, private smile, the kind of smile that exists only when no one else is watching. "Morning," he says quietly. "Morning," you say back. That is the entire conversation. 2 words. But those 2 words carry the weight of everything you cannot say. You kneel by the fireplace and begin building the fire. James moves around the room with the dusting cloth, working in smooth, practiced motions. Neither of you speaks again for 20 minutes. The work is meditative, repetitive. Your hands know what to do without thought. Lay the kindling, strike the match, add the coal, wait for the flames to catch, sweep the hearth, carry the ash bucket to the scullery, return, begin again in the next room. By 8:30, you have lit 6 fires and dusted 4 rooms. The family will begin coming downstairs at 9. Until then, the house is yours. Or rather, it belongs to the invisible army of people who keep it running. At 10 minutes to 9, you and James return to the servants' hall to collect the breakfast trays. The cook, Mrs. Albright, has prepared a full English breakfast. Eggs, bacon, sausages, grilled tomatoes, toast, butter, marmalade, and a large silver pot of tea. The food is arranged on 2 heavy trays. You and James will carry them upstairs to the dining room and set them out on the sideboard while the family eats. You will stand silently by the door in case anything is needed. You will not be offered food. You ate 3 hours ago. The dining room at Witham Park is a long, high-ceilinged room with dark wood panelling and a table that can seat 24. This morning, only 6 people are eating. Lord Ashford, Lady Ashford, their 2 daughters, Victoria and Beatrice, and 2 houseguests, a Mr. Pemberton and his wife. You do not know who Mr. Pemberton is. You do not need to know. He is wearing a tweed suit. His wife is wearing a lavender dress with too many buttons. That is all the information required. You and James enter through the service door, moving in synchronized silence. You set the trays on the sideboard. James lifts the silver covers off the dishes. You step back. You position yourself by the door, hands clasped behind your back, eyes on the middle distance. James stands across from you, mirroring your posture exactly. From the outside, you are identical, interchangeable, perfectly trained. Lord Ashford does not look at you. Lady Ashford does not look at you. The daughters do not look at you. Mr. Pemberton and his wife do not look at you. For the next 40 minutes, you are a piece of wallpaper that occasionally refills the teapot. But you are looking at James, not obviously. Not in any way that anyone could catch, just small glances, the line of his jaw, the way his hands rest at his sides, the faint shadow of stubble he must have missed while shaving this morning. You memorize details the way other people memorize poetry. At 9:30, Lady Ashford rings the small silver bell beside her plate. That is your cue. You and James step forward, clear the plates, carry the trays back to the kitchen, return upstairs, and wait in the hallway until the family leaves the dining room. Then, you will clean the table, reset it for lunch, and move on to the next task on the endless list of tasks that make up your day. Lunch, tea, dinner, silver polishing, boot blacking, letter carrying, door opening, fire tending, waiting, always waiting. But here is the thing no one tells you about being a footman in an Edwardian country house. The work is not the hard part. The work is easy. Repetitive, yes. Exhausting, yes. But easy. You can learn to build a fire, fold a napkin, serve wine from the left, and clear plates from the right. You can learn to move silently, to stand still for an hour without shifting your weight, to keep your face blank even when your feet are screaming. The hard part is the loneliness. The aching, endless loneliness of living in a house full of people and being seen by none of them. Except James. James sees you. It starts small. It has to. A glance that lasts half a second longer than it should. A smile when you pass each other on the back stairs. His hand brushing yours when you both reach for the same serving dish in the kitchen. Tiny moments. Barely there. But you collect them like treasure. 3 weeks into your employment, James speaks to you for longer than 2 words. It is late. Past 11 at night. The family has retired. The house is dark except for the faint glow of oil lamps in the corridors. You are in the butler's pantry, finishing the last of the silver polishing. Your hands smell like metal and vinegar. Your shoulders ache. You are thinking about your narrow bed and how good it will feel to lie down. James appears in the doorway. He is still in his livery, but he has taken off his collar and loosened his tie. He looks tired. He looks real. Still at it? He asks. Nearly done, you say. You set down the fork you were polishing and wipe your hands on a cloth. James steps into the room and closes the door behind him. Not all the way. Just enough that you are not visible from the corridor. Just enough that this moment is private. You did well today, he says quietly. At dinner, with the Pembertons. They are fussy. You handled it well. You were not expecting a compliment. Footmen do not compliment each other. Footmen compete, silently and relentlessly, for the favour of the butler and the approval of the family. Kindness is rare. Thank you, you say. Your voice comes out quieter than you meant it to. James is looking at you now, really looking. Not the glance and look away of the servants' hall. Not the careful neutrality of upstairs. He is looking at you the way you have been looking at him for 3 weeks. Like you matter. It gets easier, he says. The first few months are the hardest. You feel like you are drowning in rules, but you will find your footing. You are good at this. You do not know what to say to that. You are not used to being told you are good at anything. I should finish this, you say, gesturing vaguely at the pile of silver still waiting on the table. James nods. He does not move toward the door. Instead, he steps closer. Close enough that you can see the faint freckles across his nose. Close enough that you can smell the faint scent of soap and lamp oil, and something else, something warm and specific to him. If you ever need help, he says, his voice low, or if you just need someone to talk to, you can find me, all right? You nod. You do not trust your voice. James holds your gaze for one more second. Then he smiles, that same quick private smile, and leaves. You stand alone in the butler's pantry, heart pounding, hands shaking slightly. You are 23 years old. You have just been seen, truly seen, and you have no idea what to do with the feeling. The next morning, everything is the same. You wake at 5:30. You dress. You drink weak tea in the servants' hall. You light fires and dust picture frames, and stand in doorways waiting to be useful. But something inside you has shifted. There is a name now, unspoken, unnamed, but undeniably there, for what you feel when James walks into a room. You are not the first footman to feel this way. You are not even the first footman in this house. You do not know that yet, but you will. Let me tell you about the others. In 1907, 2 years after you arrive at Wytham Park, a scandal will rock a neighbouring estate called Harrington Hall. 2 footmen, a man named Peter Caldwell and a man named Edwin March, will be discovered in what the newspaper delicately calls a compromising position in the wine cellar at 3 in the morning. They will be dismissed immediately. No references, no severance pay, just gone. Peter will return to his family in Kent and never speak of Edwin again. Edwin will disappear entirely. No records of where he went, no letters, nothing. History will swallow him whole. In 1910, a footman named Samuel Harcourt will be arrested in London after being caught with another man in a public lavatory near Victoria Station. He will be tried under the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1885, Section 11, the bit that made gross indecency between men punishable by up to 2 years of hard labour. He will serve 18 months. His family will never visit him in prison. When he is released, he will be 42 years old and unemployable. He will die in a workhouse in 1923. No one will remember his name except the court records. In 1912, a valet named Arthur Edelston will write a letter to his lover, a groom named Thomas Fletcher, working at an estate in Shropshire. The letter will be intercepted by the housekeeper. Arthur will be dismissed. Thomas will be dismissed. The letter will be burned. But we know it existed because the housekeeper mentioned it in her diary, which survived and is now kept in the archives of the Museum of Domestic Service in London. She wrote, "Found a most disturbing letter today. The footman A writing to another man in language no decent person should use. I have informed his lordship. A will be gone by morning. Good riddance." These men were real. They had names. They had faces. They had lovers and letters and lives that history tried very hard to erase. And they were not alone. For every man arrested, dismissed, or publicly shamed, there were a dozen others who survived by staying silent, by learning the rules, by being so careful, so quiet, so invisible that no one ever suspected. Men like James, men like you. The thing about working in service is that you learn to read a room. You learn to notice things, a glance, a tone, a half-second pause before someone answers a question. You learn who is lying, who is hiding something, who is pretending to be someone they are not. You learn because your survival depends on it. One wrong move, one misread cue, and you are out on the street with no reference and no prospects. So you watch, you wait, and you learn. James, you come to realize, is watching too. He has been here longer than you. He knows the house, he knows the staff, he knows which housemaids are likely to gossip, which footmen are ambitious enough to sell out a colleague for a promotion, which members of the family actually pay attention to the servants, and which ones see right through you like glass. James is careful, James is smart, and James, you begin to suspect, has done this before. You do not ask, not directly, not yet. Instead, you watch the way he moves through the house, the way he always knows when someone is coming down the corridor, the way he positions himself in rooms so his back is never to the door, the way he can hold a conversation in the servants' hall while simultaneously tracking every entrance and exit. This is not paranoia. This is survival. By October, you and James have developed a rhythm. You are assigned to the same tasks more often than not. Hall duty, dining room service, serving at dinner parties when the family has guests. You are not sure if this is coincidence or if the butler, Mr. Hadley, has noticed that you work well together. Either way, you are grateful. Every shared task is a chance to be near him, to collect more of those tiny moments that make the loneliness bearable. On a Tuesday in late October, Lady Ashford hosts a luncheon for 12 ladies from the surrounding estates. You and James serve. It is a tedious affair. Delicate sandwiches, weak tea, endless chatter about garden parties and the latest fashions from Paris. You stand by the sideboard, hands behind your back, face blank, while the women talk around you as if you are not there. One of the guests, a Mrs. Cartwright, mentions her son. He is 26, recently returned from India and in need of a wife. Lady Ashford suggests her daughter Beatrice. Mrs. Cartwright suggests her friend's daughter Penelope. Another woman suggests someone named Arabella. The conversation spirals into the elaborate social calculus of who is suitable for whom. James catches your eye from across the room. He raises one eyebrow, just barely, just enough for you to see. It is the footman equivalent of rolling his eyes. You press your lips together to keep from smiling. Later, when you are clearing the plates in the kitchen, James leans close and murmurs, "If I have to listen to one more woman debate the merits of embroidered napkins, I will walk into the lake." You laugh. Quietly, but you laugh. It feels dangerous. It feels wonderful. "At least the sandwiches were good," you say. "Were they?" James says. "I was too busy contemplating my own mortality." You laugh again. This is new. Humour. Ease. The beginning of something like friendship. Or maybe something more than friendship. Something neither of you has a name for yet. Mrs. Albright, the cook, glances over from the stove. "You two, stop gossiping and get those trays sorted. The dinner service starts in 4 hours and I need this kitchen clear. You and James exchange one more look, quick, warm, private, and get back to work. That night, after the family has gone to bed and the house is finally quiet, you find yourself alone in the corridor outside your room. William is still downstairs, finishing some task or another. The hallway is dim, lit only by a single oil lamp on the table near the stairs. You are exhausted. Your feet hurt. Your hands smell like silver polish. All you want is to collapse into bed. James appears at the end of the corridor, walking toward his own room. He sees you. He stops. For a moment, neither of you moves. The house is silent. The rest of the staff is either asleep or occupied elsewhere. This is as private as it ever gets. James walks toward you slowly. He stops a few feet away. "You all right?" he asks. You nod. "Just tired. Long day." They are all long days. James smiles. That same quick, private smile. True enough. There is a pause. The kind of pause where something could happen. Where one of you could say the thing that is humming in the air between you. Where one of you could close the distance and reach out and... Footsteps on the stairs. William, returning from the kitchen. The moment shatters. James steps back. You step back. By the time William reaches the top of the stairs, you and James are standing a respectful distance apart, looking like two footmen who happened to cross paths in the corridor and exchanged a polite good night. "Evening," William says, nodding to both of you. "Evening," James says. You nod. William disappears into your shared room. James glances at you one more time, an apology, a promise, something unspoken, and then he is gone too, walking down the corridor to his own quarters. You stand alone in the dim hallway, heart pounding again, hands trembling slightly again. You are beginning to understand what this is. You are beginning to understand what you want. And you are beginning to understand just how dangerous wanting can be. The thing about desire in an Edwardian country house is that it has nowhere to go. It sits in your chest like a stone. It follows you through your daily tasks. It watches you from across the servants' hall during meals. It keeps you awake at night, staring at the ceiling, listening to William snore in the bed 3 feet away, thinking about dark eyes and a careful smile, and hands that brushed against yours while polishing silver. You have no privacy, none. Every room you enter could have someone in it. Every corridor could have eyes. Even your thoughts feel dangerous, as if someone might look at you and simply know. But here is what you learn quickly. You are not the only one carrying secrets. The house is full of them. They live in the walls. They hide in wardrobes and behind closed doors. They pulse through the servants' quarters like a second heartbeat. Take Mrs. Winters, the head housemaid. She is 47 years old. She has worked at Witham Park for 19 years. She is stern, efficient, and entirely uninterested in men. She shares a sitting room with Miss Fletcher, the lady's maid, and the two of them take their tea together every evening at 9 o'clock. They have done this for 11 years. They call each other by their first names when no one else is listening, Margaret and Dorothy. Once, you passed their door late at night and heard laughter. Low, warm, private laughter. The door was closed. You kept walking. Or take George, the senior footman. He is 31, never married, never even mentions women. He spends his half day off visiting a friend in the village, or so he says. The friend's name is Robert. Robert works as a groom at the estate next door. You have never met Robert, but you have seen the way George's face changes when he returns from these visits. Softer, lighter, like a man who has been reminded he is human. No one talks about these things. No one even acknowledges them. But everyone knows, or everyone suspects. And as long as no one says anything out loud, as long as the work gets done and the family remains oblivious, the secrets stay buried. This is the unspoken contract of service. We see nothing. We know nothing. We protect each other by pretending not to notice. Unless someone breaks the rules, unless someone gets caught. Then the contract shatters, and whoever was unlucky enough or careless enough or simply too much in love to stay hidden, they disappear, and the rest of you go back to work and pretend it never happened. By November, the house is preparing for the shooting season in earnest. This means more guests, more dinners, more work. The family hosts weekend house parties, where 12 to 20 people descend on Witham Park to shoot pheasants, drink whiskey, and gossip about people you will never meet. Your job during these parties is to be everywhere and nowhere. Carry luggage, lay out clothes, serve breakfast, serve lunch, serve tea, serve dinner, serve drinks in the drawing room, stand by doors, light fires, refill glasses, vanish. The guests bring their own servants, valets and ladies' maids who travel with their employers and occupy the already cramped servants' quarters. This makes the house feel even more crowded, even more suffocating. There is no space to breathe. Certainly no space to be alone with James. You see him constantly. You work side by side during every meal service, every drinks tray delivery, every late-night clean-up after the guests have finally staggered off to bed. But you are never alone. Not truly. There is always someone watching, always someone within earshot. It is maddening. One Saturday in mid-November, the family hosts a formal dinner for 18. You and James are assigned to serve. This means you will spend the next 4 hours standing behind chairs, refilling wine glasses, removing plates, and keeping your face carefully blank while the guests discuss politics, horses, and the shocking behaviour of someone's daughter who dared to go to university. The dining table glitters with crystal and silver. The women wear gowns in jewel tones, emerald, sapphire, ruby, and enough diamonds to fund a small country. The men wear white tie and tails. Everyone looks beautiful and bored. You stand behind the chair of a Mr. Harrington, a banker from London. James stands across the table, behind the chair of Lady Ashford. You can see each other clearly. For 4 hours, you and James communicate entirely through glances. A raised eyebrow when Mr. Harrington makes a particularly pompous speech about the state of the economy. A barely suppressed smile when one of the guests knocks over a wine glass and tries to pretend it did not happen. A flicker of exhaustion when the meal drags past its 3rd hour and your feet are screaming. At one point, late in the dinner, James looks directly at you, just for a second. His expression is soft, unguarded. It says, "I see you. I know you are tired. I am tired too. We will get through this." You look back. You let yourself hold his gaze for 1 heartbeat longer than is safe. Then you look away. No one notices. Or if they do not care. To the guests, you are invisible. You could be plotting revolution or composing poetry or silently falling in love, and they would never know. You are furniture. After dinner, the guests retire to the drawing room for coffee and brandy. You and James and the other footmen clear the table, carry the dishes to the kitchen, and begin the long process of washing, drying, and putting away enough china and silverware to serve a small army. It is nearly midnight by the time the last plate is dried and shelved. The kitchen is finally quiet. Mrs. Albright has gone to bed. The scullery maids have finished and disappeared to their attic rooms. The other footmen have drifted off one by one. You are alone in the butler's pantry, wiping down the last of the silver platters, when James appears in the doorway. He does not say anything. He just looks at you, tired, rumpled, still in his livery, but with his collar undone and his hair slightly mussed. You set down the cloth. "Long night," James says quietly. "Very," you say. He steps into the room. This time, he closes the door all the way. The click of the latch is loud in the silence. Your heart is pounding now. This is dangerous. If someone comes looking for either of you and finds the door closed, if someone hears something, if someone even suspects, "I needed to talk to you," James says. His voice is low, careful. "Alone." You nod. You do not trust yourself to speak. James crosses the small room until he is standing close. Close enough that you can see the faint shadows under his eyes. close enough that you could reach out and touch him if you dared. This is hard, he says, being around you all the time and not being able to. He stops, starts again. I do not know how to say this without sounding like a fool. You are not a fool, you say quietly. James looks at you. Really looks. The way he did that first night weeks ago. Like you matter. Like you are the only person in the house who is real. I think you know, he says, what I am trying to say. You do know. You have known for weeks. You have been carrying it inside you like a secret fire, terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Yes, you whisper. James exhales. It sounds like relief. I have been careful my whole life, he says. I have never let anyone close. It is safer that way, easier. But then you arrived and… He shakes his head. I do not want to be careful anymore. Not with you. Your throat is tight. Your hands are trembling. You have never wanted anything the way you want to close the distance between you right now. We could lose everything, you say. It is not a rejection. It is a fact. I know, James says. Believe me, I know. I have seen what happens when people get caught. But I also know that I cannot keep pretending I do not feel this way. I am tired of pretending. You are both silent for a moment. The weight of what he has just said hangs in the air between you. This is a confession, a risk, an offer. I do not want you to lose your position, you say. Not because of me. Then we will be careful, James says. We will be smarter than the others. We will not get caught. You want to believe him. You want to believe this is possible, that two men can love each other in a house full of eyes and somehow survive. What are you suggesting? You ask. James reaches out slowly, carefully, and takes your hand. His fingers are warm. His grip is steady. It is the first time you have touched each other intentionally, deliberately, without the excuse of work. I am suggesting, he says quietly, that we find a way. We meet when we can. We are careful. We do not take risks, but we do not pretend anymore, not with each other. You look down at your hands, his hand in yours. It feels monumental. It feels terrifying. It feels right. All right, you whisper. James smiles. It is not the quick, private smile this time. It is something bigger. Relief and joy and fear, all mixed together. He squeezes your hand once, then lets go. We should get to bed, he says, before anyone notices we are both missing. You nod. You do not want him to leave. But he is right. Staying here any longer is a risk you cannot afford. James moves toward the door, then pauses. He turns back. Thomas, he says. It is the first time he has used your first name. Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to say yes. Then he is gone. The door closes softly behind him. You stand alone in the butler's pantry, heart still pounding, hands still trembling. You are 23 years old. You have just agreed to something that could ruin your life, and you have never felt more alive. The next few weeks pass in a careful dance. You and James see each other every day, at meals, during work, in passing in the corridors. But you do not speak beyond what is necessary for the tasks at hand. You do not look at each other longer than you should. To any observer, you are simply two footmen doing their jobs. But late at night, after the house is asleep, you find each other. Not every night. That would be too dangerous. But once or twice a week, when the circumstances are right, when William is working late, when the other footmen are occupied, when the house is dark and quiet and the risk is as low as it will ever be, you meet. Sometimes in the butler's pantry, sometimes in the linen closet at the end of the corridor, once, daringly, in the library after midnight when the family is away for the weekend. You do not do much. Mostly you just talk. Whispered conversations in the dark about everything and nothing. James tells you about growing up in Manchester, the third son of a clerk, how he came into service at 15, and has been working in great houses ever since. You tell him about Derbyshire, about your family, about how strange it felt to leave home and come to a place where no one knew your name. And sometimes you do not talk at all. Sometimes you just sit close to each other in the dark, shoulders touching, hands clasped, breathing in the same rhythm. Sometimes James kisses you, quick, careful kisses that taste like tea and fear and something sweeter than either. You are terrified every single time, terrified that someone will hear, that someone will see, that a door will open and your entire life will end in an instant. But you keep coming back. You cannot help it. These stolen moments in the dark, is the only time you feel like yourself. The only time you are not performing the role of a footman. The only time you are simply Thomas, 23 years old, in love for the first time in his life. In December, the house prepares for Christmas. This means even more work, decorating, polishing, cooking. The family hosts a Christmas ball for 200 guests. You and James work the event together, serving champagne and canapes and standing by the ballroom doors for 6 straight hours while the guests waltz and laugh and drink themselves into oblivion. By 2 in the morning, when the last guest has finally left and the house is being cleaned, you are so exhausted you can barely stand. James catches your eye across the ballroom and tilts his head toward the door, a signal. 5 minutes later, you meet him in the darkened library. He does not say anything. He just pulls you close and holds you. You bury your face in his shoulder and let yourself breathe. "I am so tired," you whisper. "I know," James says. "Me too." You stand there for a long moment, holding each other in the dark, surrounded by leather-bound books and the faint smell of cigar smoke from the party. It is the closest thing to peace you have felt in weeks. "Do you ever think about leaving?" you ask quietly. "Just walking away from all of this?" James is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "Every day. But where would we go? What would we do? Men like us, we do not have many choices." He is right. You know he is right. Without a reference, you cannot get another position. Without a position, you have no income. Without income, you have nothing. The world outside service is not kind to men with no money and no prospects, and it is certainly not kind to men like you and James. "We could go to a city," you say. "London, maybe. Find work, disappear." "And live how?" James asks gently. "In a rented room with no heat and no food, working in a factory for pennies. At least here we have beds and meals and a roof. At least here we have each other." You know he is right. But the thought of staying here, of living this half-life forever, always hiding, always afraid, makes your chest feel tight. "I just want one day," you whisper. "One day where we do not have to hide, where we can walk outside together and no one cares, where we can just be." James pulls back enough to look at you. Even in the dim light, you can see the sadness in his eyes. "I want that too," he says. "But that world does not exist. Not for us. Not yet." "Maybe someday," you say. It sounds childish even as you say it. James cups your face in his hands. "Maybe someday," he echoes. Then he kisses you, soft and slow and tender. A kiss that tastes like grief and hope and all the things you cannot have. When he pulls away, he rests his forehead against yours. "We should go," he whispers, "before someone finds us." You nod. You do not want to let go. But you do. You always do. You slip out of the library separately, 5 minutes apart, and return to your respective rooms. William is already asleep. You undress in the dark, climb into your narrow bed, and stare at the ceiling until dawn. Not every footman was as careful as you and James. Not every love story ended with stolen kisses in the library and whispered promises in the dark. Some ended in scandal. Some ended in violence. Some simply ended. Let me tell you about William Wright. He was a footman at Melton Hall in Yorkshire in 1908. He was 26 years old. He fell in love with another footman named Charles Bennett. They were not careful enough. A housemaid saw them kissing in the stable one evening after dinner. She told the housekeeper. The housekeeper told the lady of the house. William and Charles were dismissed the next morning. No explanation. No references. Just gone. Charles disappeared into the workhouse system. William tried to find work in Leeds, but no one would hire a man dismissed without references. He wrote letters to Charles. The letters were returned unopened. 6 months later, William's body was pulled from the River Aire. The coroner ruled it an accidental drowning. His family did not claim the body. He was buried in an unmarked grave in a pauper's cemetery. We know about William because a local newspaper ran a small notice about the drowning. We know about Charles because his name appears in workhouse records in Sheffield. That is all. 2 men who loved each other. 2 men erased by history. 2 men whose only crime was wanting to be seen. Or take Henry Moss and Frederick Trenton, footmen at Easton House in Northumberland. They were caught in 1903. Not kissing, not even touching. They were caught writing letters to each other. Love letters. Explicit letters. The kind of letters that left no room for interpretation. The letters were found by a valet who was searching Frederick's room for a missing cufflink. The valet turned the letters over to the butler. The butler turned them over to the master of the house. Henry and Frederick were not just dismissed. They were arrested, tried, convicted of gross indecency under the Criminal Law Amendment Act. Henry received 2 years of hard labour. Frederick received 18 months. Henry was sent to Pentonville Prison in London. The conditions were brutal. Prisoners convicted of gross indecency were given the hardest labour. Breaking rocks, oakum picking, the treadwheel. They were kept in solitary confinement for most of their sentence. No visitors, no letters, no contact with the outside world. Henry Moss served his full sentence. When he was released in 1905, he was 30 years old. He looked 50. He had lost 3 stone. He had a persistent cough from the damp prison air that would never fully go away. He could not find work. He could not go home. His family had disowned him. He died in 1909, alone in a boarding house in Whitechapel. The cause of death was listed as tuberculosis. He was 34. Frederick Trenton disappeared after his release. No records, no death certificate, no trace. He was 28 when he went to prison. After that, nothing. History swallowed him whole. These stories are not anomalies. They are patterns. Between 1885 and 1914, hundreds of men were arrested and convicted under the gross indecency laws. Many of them were servants, footmen, valets, grooms, who had the misfortune of being caught. The trials were public. The sentences were harsh. The newspapers reported every lurid detail. And when the men were released from prison, they had nothing. No jobs, no family, no future. Just the brand of criminality that followed them for the rest of their short lives. But for every man arrested, there were dozens who were never caught. Men who learned the rules. Men who were careful. Men who survived by staying invisible. Men like James. Men like you. By January, you and James have been meeting in secret for 2 months. You have developed a system, signals, safe places, times when the risk is lowest. You have learned which floorboards creak, which doors squeak, which servants are heavy sleepers, and which ones are light. You move through the house like ghosts. It is not perfect. It is not safe, but it is yours. One evening in late January, after a particularly exhausting day of serving at yet another house party, you and James find yourselves alone in the wine cellar. It is not a planned meeting. You are down here fetching bottles for dinner, and James is supposed to be checking the inventory. But the moment you see each other, the moment the door closes behind you, the careful distance you maintain upstairs dissolves. James crosses to you in 3 steps and kisses you. Hard. Desperate. Like a man who has been holding his breath for too long and finally found air. You kiss him back. You let yourself forget, just for a moment, where you are. You let yourself feel the warmth of his body against yours, the taste of him, the solid realness of him. When you finally pull apart, you are both breathing hard. We should not do this here, you whisper. The wine cellar is not safe. Anyone could come down. The butler, another footman, a housemaid fetching something from storage. I know, James says, but he does not let go. I just needed... He stops, starts again. I needed to remind myself this is real. It is real, you say. James rests his forehead against yours. Sometimes I think I dreamed you, that you are too good to be true. I am not good, you say. I am terrified all the time. So am I, James says. But I would rather be terrified with you than safe alone. You hold each other for one more moment. Then you hear it. Footsteps on the stairs above. Someone is coming. You and James spring apart. You grab 2 wine bottles from the nearest rack. James pulls out the inventory ledger and pretends to be checking labels. By the time the door opens and George appears, you are standing a respectable distance apart, looking like 2 footmen doing exactly what they are supposed to be doing. Dinner service in 10 minutes, George says. He glances between you and James, his expression unreadable. Best hurry up. Nearly done, James says smoothly. George nods and leaves. The door closes behind him. You and James exchange a look. Did he know? Did he see something? Or was it just coincidence? We need to be more careful, you whisper. I know, James says. But you both know that careful has limits. That no matter how smart you are, no matter how many precautions you take, there is always risk. There is always the chance that someone will notice, that someone will guess, that one day the door will open at the wrong moment and everything you have built together will come crashing down. For now, though, you are still here, still hidden, still alive. You carry the wine bottles upstairs and serve dinner. You stand behind chairs and refill glasses and keep your face blank. You do not look at James. You do not let yourself think about the kiss. You do your job. You survive another day. And late that night, after the house is finally quiet, you lie in your narrow bed and think about Frederick Trenton, who disappeared after prison. You think about William Wright, who drowned in the River Aire. You think about all the men who loved and lost and were erased. You think, not me, not us. We will be smarter. We will be more careful. But you also know that love makes people reckless, and you are already more reckless than you have ever been in your life. February brings snow, thick, heavy snow, that blankets the estate and makes the house feel even more isolated than usual. The roads become impassable. Guests who were supposed to leave stay an extra 3 days. New guests who were supposed to arrive send telegrams cancelling. The family is trapped inside with nothing to do but complain about the cold and demand more fires, more tea, more entertainment. For the servants, this means more work, more fires to light, more coal to carry, more snow to clear from the front steps every morning. Your hands crack and bleed from the cold. Your chilblains return, painful swellings on your fingers and toes that itch and burn. You wrap your hands in strips of cloth soaked in lanolin, but it barely helps. James has it worse. He slips on the icy back steps while carrying a coal scuttle and bruises his ribs badly. He does not tell anyone. He cannot afford to. If he admits he is injured, he will be seen as weak, unreliable. So he works through the pain, moving carefully, breathing shallowly, his face going pale whenever he has to lift something heavy. You notice. Of course you notice. You notice everything about him now. One night, you find him alone in the servants' hall after everyone else has gone to bed. He is sitting by the dying fire, holding his side, trying to breathe through what is clearly significant pain. You sit down beside him without asking permission. How bad is it? I am fine, James says automatically. You are not fine. Let me see. James hesitates, then slowly unbuttons his waistcoat and lifts his shirt. The bruise spreads across his left side like spilled ink, deep purple and black, with edges that fade to green and yellow. It looks awful. You wince. You need to see a doctor. I cannot see a doctor, James says flatly. If I tell them I am hurt, they will replace me. Do you know how many men are looking for work right now? How many would take my position in a heartbeat? You could have broken ribs. Probably, James says. He lowers his shirt and buttons his waistcoat with stiff, careful movements. But I can still work, so I will work. You want to argue. You want to drag him to the housekeeper and insist he get medical attention. But you know he is right. Service is not forgiving. Injury is weakness. Weakness is expendable. Instead, you say, at least let me help. I can cover your heavy lifting. Say you are doing other tasks. No one will notice if we trade duties. James looks at you. For a moment, his careful mask slips, and you see the exhaustion underneath. The pain. The fear. You would do that? Of course I would. James reaches out and squeezes your hand. Just once. A brief touch that could be mistaken for gratitude between colleagues. But you both know it is more than that. Thank you, he whispers. For the next 2 weeks, you carry James's coal scuttles. You lift his heavy trays. You volunteer for the tasks that require bending or stretching or any movement that might hurt his ribs. George notices and makes a snide comment about you trying to impress the butler. You let him think that. It is safer than the truth. Slowly, James heals. The bruise fades. His breathing eases. By early March, he is moving normally again. He never thanks you out loud. That would be too obvious. But the way he looks at you says everything. March also brings news from London. King Edward VII is ill. The newspapers report that he has bronchitis, nothing serious, but everyone in service knows that when royalty is ill, the whole country holds its breath. If the king dies, there will be a period of national mourning. All social events will be cancelled. The great houses will close their doors to guests. Life will pause. The king does not die. Not yet. But the news unsettles everyone. Change is coming. You can feel it in the air, like the smell of rain before a storm. For you and James, though, life continues in its careful rhythm. Work, stolen moments, whispered conversations in dark corners. You have been doing this for 4 months now. 4 months of hiding in plain sight. 4 months of loving someone you are not supposed to love. You are getting better at it, more confident, more reckless. That is when things start to go wrong. It begins small, a look that lasts too long during dinner service. George notices. He does not say anything, but you see him watching you and James more carefully after that, tracking your movements, noting when you are in the same room, when you disappear at the same time, when you return within minutes of each other. Then William makes a comment. You and James are changing for dinner service, daily livery to formal livery, and William says casually, "You two are awfully close these days." Your blood runs cold. What do you mean? William shrugs. Just an observation. You're always volunteering to work together, always covering for each other. People notice. We work well together, you say. Your voice sounds normal, calm, but inside, your heart is racing. I am sure you do, William says. He does not look at you. He is adjusting his collar in the small mirror above the wash basin, his tone light, conversational, but there is something underneath it, a warning, or a threat. You finish dressing in silence and leave the room as quickly as you can without seeming like you are fleeing. That night, you find James in the butler's pantry. You close the door and tell him what William said. James's face goes very still. Did he say anything else? No, but he knows, or he suspects. Then we need to be more careful. We have been careful, you say. Frustration bleeds into your voice. We have been so careful, but people see what they want to see. James runs a hand through his hair. He looks tired. He looks scared. What do you want to do? I do not know, you admit. If we stop meeting, people will think we had a falling out. That might draw even more attention. But if we keep meeting, and William says something to George, or George says something to the butler. We could be dismissed, James finishes quietly. Or worse. You both stand there in the dim pantry, surrounded by shelves of silver and china, and face the truth neither of you has wanted to say out loud. This cannot last. It was always going to end. The only question is when and how much it will cost you. I am not ready to stop, James says finally. His voice is low, fierce. I know that makes me selfish. I know it puts us both at risk. But I am not ready to lose you. Not yet. I am not ready either, you whisper. James crosses to you and pulls you into his arms. You hold each other tightly, desperately, like drowning men clinging to driftwood. You can feel his heartbeat against your chest. You can smell the faint scent of soap and starch and him. We will be more careful, James says into your hair. We will not meet as often. We will not look at each other during service. We will be perfect footmen, and no one will have any reason to suspect anything. You want to believe him. You want to believe that perfect behavior will save you. But you have heard the stories. You know how this ends. Still, you nod. You agree. Because the alternative, never seeing him again, never touching him again, going back to the loneliness of before, is unbearable. You pull apart. James wipes his eyes quickly. You do the same. Then you leave the pantry separately, 5 minutes apart, and return to your roles. For the next 3 weeks, you and James barely speak. You work your assigned tasks. You eat meals at opposite ends of the servants' table. You do not make eye contact. You do not volunteer to work together. You become strangers. It is agony, but it works. George stops watching you quite so closely. William stops making comments. The household settles back into its normal rhythm. No one suspects anything because there is nothing to suspect. You are simply two footmen doing your jobs. At night, alone in your bed, you think about James constantly. You replay every conversation, every touch, every kiss. You wonder if he is doing the same. You wonder if this is how it will be from now on. Longing from a distance, never touching, never speaking, slowly forgetting what it felt like to be seen. The thought makes you want to scream. Then, in late March, something happens that changes everything. A new guest arrives at Witham Park. His name is Lord Edward Beaumont. He is 38 years old, unmarried, and staggeringly wealthy. He owns estates in 3 counties and a townhouse in Belgravia. He is also, within 5 minutes of arriving, obviously homosexual. Not obviously to the family. They see only a charming aristocrat with impeccable manners and an impressive library. But to the servants, to anyone who knows how to read the signs, it is clear. The way he looks at his valet, a handsome young man named Oliver. The way he speaks to the male servants with just a shade more warmth than to the female ones. The careful way he never mentions women except in the most distant, polite terms. Lord Beaumont is a bachelor by choice. And in Edwardian England, that is code. He stays at Witham Park for a week. During that time, you serve him twice at dinner and once at breakfast. He is polite to you, friendly even. He thanks you when you refill his wine glass. He asks your name. He remembers it the next day. This is unusual. Most guests do not acknowledge footmen at all. The fact that Lord Beaumont does makes you nervous. On his 4th evening at the house, you are assigned to turn down his bed and lay out his nightclothes. This is normally a valet's job, but Oliver is ill, a bad cold, so the task falls to you. You knock on the door of Lord Beaumont's room at 9 o'clock. A voice calls, "Come in." You enter. The room is large and beautifully furnished. 4-poster bed, thick carpet, heavy velvet curtains. A fire burns in the grate. Lord Beaumont is sitting in an armchair by the fire, reading a book. He is still dressed in his evening clothes, but he has removed his jacket and loosened his tie. "Good evening, sir," you say. "I'm here to turn down your bed." "Of course," Lord Beaumont says. He does not look up from his book. "Please, go ahead." You move around the room quietly, folding back the coverlet, plumping the pillows, laying out his nightshirt and dressing gown. You work efficiently. the way you have been trained. You do not speak. You do not make unnecessary noise. But you can feel Lord Beaumont watching you. Not obviously, not in a way that would make you uncomfortable. Just a quiet, assessing gaze that follows your movements around the room. When you finish, you turn to leave. "Good night, sir." "A moment," Lord Beaumont says. You freeze. Your heart starts pounding. Have you done something wrong? Missed something? Offended him somehow? Lord Beaumont sets down his book and looks at you directly. "What is your name again?" "Thomas, sir." "Thomas," he repeats. "How long have you worked here, Thomas?" "6 months, sir." Lord Beaumont nods slowly. He is studying you now, his expression thoughtful. "And do you enjoy the work?" This is a strange question. Guests do not usually ask servants if they enjoy their work. The answer is always the same anyway. "Yes, sir, very much, sir. Thank you for asking, sir." But something about Lord Beaumont's tone makes you pause. He is not asking out of polite curiosity. He is asking because he genuinely wants to know. "It is good work, sir," you say carefully. "The family is fair. The house is well run." "That is not what I asked," Lord Beaumont says gently. "I asked if you enjoy it." You hesitate. This feels like a test, but you do not know what the right answer is. "It is a good position, sir," you say finally. "I am grateful for it." Lord Beaumont smiles slightly. "A diplomatic answer. You will go far in service, Thomas." You do not know what to say to that, so you say nothing. Lord Beaumont stands and crosses to the fireplace. He picks up a poker and adjusts the logs, sending up a shower of sparks. "I notice things," he says quietly, his back to you. "It is a habit of mine. Some might call it a curse. I notice when people are unhappy, when they are pretending, when they are hiding something." Your mouth goes dry. You stand very still, barely breathing. "I have been watching the staff here," Lord Beaumont continues. "And I have noticed you, Thomas. You and the other young footman, James, I believe his name is. You work well together, almost too well. You move around each other like dancers who have practiced the same routine 1,000 times. He turns to look at you now. His expression is kind, not judgmental, not threatening, just kind. "I am not going to say anything," he says, "to anyone. I simply wanted you to know that I see you, both of you, and I understand." You cannot speak. Your throat is too tight. Your heart is pounding so hard you are sure he can hear it. Lord Beaumont crosses back to his chair and sits down. He picks up his book again, as if the conversation is over. "You may go, Thomas, and please do be more careful. Not everyone is as observant as I am, but some are, and they will not be as understanding." You manage a nod. You leave the room on shaking legs. You close the door behind you and stand in the corridor, breathing hard, trying to make sense of what just happened. Lord Beaumont knows. He saw through you and James like you were made of glass, and he could ruin you with a single word to Lord Ashford. He could have you both dismissed, arrested, destroyed, but he said he would not say anything. He said he understands. Can you trust him? Do you have a choice? You find James in the servants' hall. He is alone, mending a torn seam in one of his gloves. You sit down beside him and, in a low whisper, tell him everything. James goes very pale. "Are you certain that is what he meant?" "I am certain. And he said he would not tell anyone." "He said he would not." James sets down the glove. His hands are trembling slightly. Men like him, wealthy, titled, they can afford to be sympathetic. They can afford to keep secrets because they are protected by their position. But if he changes his mind, if he decides we are too much of a risk— "I know," you say. You sit together in silence, both of you thinking the same thing. Your secret is no longer entirely yours. Someone else knows. Someone with power over you. Someone who could, at any moment, decide to use that power. It is terrifying. But it is also, in a strange way, a relief. For the first time since you arrived at Witham Park, someone other than James has seen you. Really seen you. And that person has not condemned you. He has warned you, yes. But he has also acknowledged your existence, your humanity. It is more than you have ever had before. The next morning, Lord Beaumont leaves Witham Park. He shakes hands with Lord Ashford, kisses Lady Ashford's hand, thanks the butler for the excellent service, and departs in a gleaming black motor car. You and James stand with the other servants on the front steps, watching him go. Just before the car pulls away, Lord Beaumont catches your eye. He gives you the smallest nod, a gesture so subtle that no one else would even notice. But you notice, you understand. Be careful, be safe. You are not alone. The car disappears down the long gravel drive. The servants file back inside. Life returns to normal, except it does not. Not really, because now you know that there are others like you. Men in positions of power who understand what it is like to live in hiding. Men who choose sympathy over condemnation. It does not make you safe, but it makes you feel less alone. That night, you and James meet for the first time in 3 weeks. You find each other in the library after midnight. You do not speak. You just hold each other in the dark, breathing in sync, memorizing the feeling of being close. "I thought I was going to lose you," James whispers. "You did not," you say. "I thought he was going to tell. I thought it was over." It is not over. James pulls back enough to look at you. "How much longer can we do this?" You do not have an answer. You do not know if this will last another month, another year, or another decade. You do not know if you will grow old together or be torn apart tomorrow. All you know is that right now, in this moment, you are together. And that has to be enough. "As long as we can," you say. James nods. He kisses you, soft and slow and desperate. And for a little while, the fear recedes. For a little while you are not a footman, and he is not a footman. You are just two men who love each other, stealing a few precious moments in a world that wants you erased. By April, spring has arrived. The snow melts, the roads clear. Guests come and go. Life at Witham Park continues in its predictable rhythm. You and James settle back into your careful routine, working together when necessary, maintaining distance when possible, meeting in secret when the risk is low. George stops watching you quite so closely. William loses interest. The household has moved on to other gossip. A housemaid who is stepping out with the undergardener. A scandalous letter that arrived for one of the daughters. The rising cost of coal. You start to believe you might actually survive this. That you and James might be the exception to the rule. That you might be careful enough, smart enough, lucky enough to avoid the fate of William Wright and Henry Moss and all the other men who loved and lost. Then May arrives. And with it, disaster. It happens on a warm evening. The family is hosting a small dinner party, only 8 guests. You and James are serving. The meal goes smoothly. No spilled wine, no dropped plates, no mistakes. After dinner, the guests retire to the drawing room. You and James and the other footman clear the table and carry the dishes to the kitchen. It is routine, boring even. But when you return to collect the last of the wine glasses, you find that one of the guests, a Mr. Thornbury, a magistrate from the neighbouring county, has left his pocket watch on the sideboard. It is a beautiful watch, gold with an engraved cover. You pick it up, intending to return it to Mr. Thornbury in the drawing room. But as you turn to leave, James enters through the service door. He is carrying an empty tray. You both stop. You look at each other. The dining room is empty. The door to the hallway is closed. The door to the kitchen is closed. You are alone. For one reckless, stupid, beautiful moment, you forget where you are. You forget the rules. You forget everything except the fact that James is here, and you have not been this close to him in days. James crosses the room and kisses you. It is quick, barely 3 seconds, But it is enough. It is also a mistake. Because the door to the hallway opens, and standing in the doorway, frozen in shock, is Lady Beatrice, Lord Ashford's younger daughter. She is 17 years old. She has come back for her embroidery basket, and she has just seen two footmen kissing in her father's dining room. Time stops. You and James spring apart. The pocket watch falls from your hand and hits the floor with a loud metallic clang. Lady Beatrice stares at you, her face pale, her mouth open. No one moves. No one speaks. Then Lady Beatrice turns and runs. You and James stand in the dining room, staring at the empty doorway where Lady Beatrice just disappeared. Neither of you moves. Neither of you breathes. The only sound is the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, counting down the seconds until your lives end. "We have to go," James says. His voice is flat, distant, like he is speaking from very far away. "Where?" you ask. Your own voice sounds strange in your ears. "Anywhere. Now, before she tells someone." But you both know it is already too late. Lady Beatrice is probably halfway to her mother's sitting room right now. In 5 minutes, maybe 10, the entire household will know. In an hour, you will be dismissed. By morning, you could be in police custody. Your legs feel weak. You sit down heavily in one of the dining chairs, a breach of protocol so severe it would normally be unthinkable. James remains standing, his hands clenched at his sides, his face pale. "Maybe she will not say anything," you say. It sounds desperate, even to your own ears. James laughs. It is a bitter, broken sound. She is 17 years old. She just saw something that will scandalize her for life. Of course she will say something. "We could leave, right now, pack our things and go before anyone." "And then what?" James snaps. "Run where? We have no money, no references, no prospects. We would be lucky to make it to the next village before starving. And even if we did..." He stops, takes a breath, continues more quietly. "Even if we did, they would find us. Lord Ashford has connections, influence. If he wants us found and prosecuted, we will be found and prosecuted." You know he is right. You have always known that getting caught would mean the end of everything. You just never let yourself think about what that end would actually look like. The trial, the prison, the hard labor, the public humiliation, the total destruction of any future you might have had. You think of Henry Moss, who served 2 years and came out a broken shell of a man. You think of William Wright, who drowned himself in the River Aire. You think of all the men who loved and were caught and paid for it with their freedom, their health, their lives. "I am sorry," you whisper. "This is my fault. I should have been more careful. I should have checked the door. I should have..." "Stop," James says. He crosses to you and kneels down so you are at eye level. His hands grip your shoulders. "This is not your fault. If anyone is to blame, it is me. I kissed you. I was reckless. His voice breaks. He closes his eyes. "I am sorry. I am so sorry." You reach up and cover his hands with yours. "I do not regret it." James opens his eyes. They are wet. "You should. I do not." For a long moment, you just look at each other. Two men who fell in love in a world that considers love a crime. Two men who are about to lose everything. Then footsteps echo in the hallway. Multiple footsteps, heavy, purposeful, coming toward the dining room. James stands quickly. You stand too. You both straighten your livery, smooth your hair, compose your faces. Old habits, pointless now, but ingrained too deeply to abandon. The door opens. Mr. Hadley, the butler, enters. His face is grave. Behind him is Lord Ashford himself, dressed in evening clothes, his expression cold and furious. "Thomas Bainbridge, James Whitmore." Mr. Hadley's voice is formal, distant. "You are dismissed from service, effective immediately. You will pack your belongings and leave the estate within the hour. You will receive no references. You will not be paid your remaining wages. And if you attempt to contact anyone in this household or speak to anyone about the circumstances of your dismissal, Lord Ashford will ensure that you are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Do you understand? You nod. You cannot speak. Your throat is too tight. James says, "Yes, sir." Lord Ashford steps forward. He is a tall man, imposing even in middle age. He looks at you and James with undisguised disgust. "I do not know what depravity led you to commit such an act under my roof," he says coldly, "and I do not care to know. You will leave my house immediately. If I ever hear that either of you has secured employment in any respectable household, I will make it my personal mission to inform your employers of your true nature. You are filth, both of you, and you will be treated as such." He turns on his heel and walks out. The door slams behind him. Mr. Hadley remains. He looks at you and James with something that might be pity. Or it might just be discomfort at having to handle an unpleasant situation. "I suggest you leave quietly," he says. "The other servants have not been told the details, only that you have been dismissed for misconduct. It would be best for everyone if it remained that way." "Yes, sir," James says again. Mr. Hadley nods and leaves. The door closes. You and James are alone again. You look at each other. There is nothing to say, no words big enough to contain what has just happened. "We should pack," James says finally. You nod. You walk together to the male servants' wing, side by side but not touching. George and William are in the corridor. They stare at you as you pass. Neither of them speaks. They know something terrible has happened. They do not know what, and they will not ask. You enter your room. William is not there. He is still on duty. You pull your small canvas bag from under your bed and begin packing. 2 shirts, 1 pair of trousers, a spare set of underclothes, a comb, a book of common prayer your mother gave you when you left home. That is all you own. 6 months of wages saved, £3 and change, hidden in a sock at the bottom of your bag. £3. It might last you 2 weeks if you are careful, maybe 3 if you are lucky. After that, nothing. James appears in the doorway. He has his own bag slung over his shoulder. His face is composed, but his hands are shaking. "Ready?" he asks. "Yes." You follow him down the back stairs, through the servants' hall, past the kitchen where Mrs. Albright is giving instructions to the scullery maids. No one looks at you. No one says goodbye. You exit through the service entrance, the same door you walked through 6 months ago, when you arrived full of hope and nerves and excitement about your new position. Now you are leaving with nothing but a bag of clothes and a man who you love and who loves you and who is now tied to you by disaster. The evening air is warm. The sun is setting over the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It is beautiful. It feels obscene that the world can be beautiful at a moment like this. You and James walk down the gravel drive in silence. When you reach the main road, you stop and look back at Wytham Park. The house glows in the fading light, elegant and imposing. It was your home for 6 months. Now it is a place you can never return to. "Where do we go?" you ask. James exhales slowly. "I have a friend in Manchester, a man I worked with years ago. He might let us stay with him for a few days while we figure out what to do next." "Will he be safe?" "I do not know," James admits, "but he is all I have." You start walking. The road stretches ahead of you, empty and uncertain. You have no plan, no prospects, no future, just each other. And as you walk side by side in the growing dark, you think about all the other men who have walked this same road. Dismissed, disgraced, erased. You think about how many of them survived and how many did not. You think about how unfair it is that loving someone can destroy your entire life. But you also think about Lord Edward Beaumont, who saw you and did not condemn you. You think about Mrs. Winters and Miss Fletcher, who have loved each other quietly for 11 years. You think about George and his friend Robert. You think about all the people who have found ways to survive, to carve out small pockets of safety in a hostile world. You do not know if you will survive, but you are going to try. Manchester is 3 days' walk from Wytham Park. You and James walk during the day and sleep rough at night, in barns, under hedgerows, once in an abandoned shepherd's hut on the edge of a moor. You eat bread and cheese purchased from village shops when you can afford it, and go hungry when you cannot. James's ribs, which never fully healed from his fall in February, begin to hurt again from the long hours of walking. He does not complain, but you can see the pain in the way he moves, the way he presses his hand to his side when he thinks you are not looking. On the second night, you find shelter in a barn outside a small village. The farmer does not know you are there. You and James huddle together in the hay, trying to stay warm as the temperature drops. Your feet are blistered. Your clothes are dirty. You smell like sweat and dust and desperation. James leans against you, his head on your shoulder. "I am sorry," he whispers. "You have already apologized." "I know, but I need to say it again. This is my fault. If I had not kissed you, if I had waited, then we would have been caught another time," you say. "We were always going to be caught eventually. We were not careful enough. Or maybe we were too careful and it drove us mad. I do not know, but I do not blame you." James is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "What do you think will happen to us?" "I do not know." "Do you think we will survive?" You want to lie. You want to tell him that everything will be fine, that you will find work and safety and a future. But you have never lied to him before, and you will not start now. "I do not know," you say again, "but we will try." James nods against your shoulder. Together. Together. You reach Manchester on the evening of the third day. The city is vast and loud and filthy, smoke-stained buildings, crowded streets, the constant noise of trams and carts and people shouting. It is overwhelming after the quiet countryside of Witham Park. James leads you through a maze of narrow streets to a terraced house in a working-class neighbourhood. The door is painted green, but the paint is peeling. The windows are grimy. The whole street smells like coal smoke and boiled cabbage. James knocks. A minute later, the door opens. A man in his 40s stands in the doorway. He has thinning hair, a tired face, and sharp eyes that take in James's appearance, the dirty clothes, the exhaustion, the desperation, in an instant. "James," the man says. His voice is carefully neutral. "I was not expecting you." "I know, Arthur. I am sorry, I would not have come if—" James stops, starts again. "I need help. We need help." Arthur's gaze shifts to you. He assesses you the same way he assessed James. Then he sighs and steps aside. "Come in, quickly." You and James enter. Arthur closes the door behind you and bolts it. He leads you down a narrow hallway to a small sitting room. The furniture is worn but clean. A coal fire burns in the grate. It is warm. After 3 days sleeping rough, the warmth feels like luxury. "Sit," Arthur says. "I will make tea." He disappears into the back of the house. You and James collapse onto the sofa. Neither of you speaks. You are too tired, too overwhelmed. Arthur returns with 3 cups of tea and a plate of plain biscuits. He hands you and James each a cup and sits in the armchair across from you. "Tell me what happened," he says. James tells him. Everything. The job at Witham Park. You. The months of secrecy. Lady Beatrice. The dismissal. Arthur listens without interrupting. His face remains neutral, but his hands tighten around his teacup. When James finishes, Arthur is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "You were caught by a family member. That is the worst possible scenario. If it had been another servant, you might have been able to manage it. But a family member..." He shakes his head. "You are lucky they did not prosecute." "We do not feel lucky," James says quietly. "You should," Arthur says bluntly. "I have known 3 men who were prosecuted for gross indecency. 2 of them died in prison. The 3rd survived, but he is..." Arthur stops, shakes his head again. "You are lucky." You sip your tea. It is weak and oversteeped, but it is hot, and that is all that matters. "Can we stay here?" James asks. "Just for a few days. A week at most." until we find work and a place of our own. Arthur looks at him for a long moment. Then he says, "You cannot find work. Not in service, not without references." "I know. But there must be other work. Factories, warehouses, something." "Factory work pays 9 shillings a week," Arthur says. "If you are lucky. Most places pay less. You would need to work 60 hours a week just to afford a rented room and food, and that is assuming they hire you at all. Most factory owners prefer to hire men with families. Single men are seen as unreliable." "Then what are we supposed to do?" James's voice cracks. "Starve?" Arthur sighs. He sets down his teacup and leans forward, his elbows on his knees. "I am not saying it is impossible. I am saying it is hard. Men like us, men without families, without connections, without references, we are at the bottom. We take the work no one else wants. We live in the places no one else can afford. We survive because we have no other choice." "Have you survived?" you ask quietly. It is the first time you have spoken since entering the house. Arthur looks at you. "I have. Barely. I work at a textile mill, 65 hours a week. I live in this house with 2 other men who also have nowhere else to go. We pool our wages to afford rent and food. It is not a life anyone would choose. But it is a life." "Can we stay?" James asks again. Arthur is quiet. You can see him weighing the risk. 2 more men in an already crowded house. 2 more mouths to feed. 2 more people who could draw attention, who could bring trouble. Finally, he nods. 1 week. That is all I can offer. After that, you need to find somewhere else." "Agreed." "Agreed," James says. "Thank you, Arthur. Truly." Arthur waves a hand dismissively. "Do not thank me. Just do not bring trouble to my door. I have worked too hard to keep this place safe." He shows you and James to a tiny room on the 2nd floor. It contains 1 narrow bed, a chair, and nothing else. The wallpaper is peeling. The floorboards creak. But it is a room. It is shelter. For 1 week, it is yours. That night, you and James lie in the narrow bed together, pressed close out of necessity. There is no space to move, no privacy. But after 3 days sleeping rough, the bed feels like heaven. "Are we going to be all right?" you whisper into the dark. James's arms tighten around you. "I do not know, but we are here. We are alive. That is something. It is not much, but it is all you have." The next morning, you and James begin looking for work. You walk the streets of Manchester, stopping at every factory, every warehouse, every shop that might be hiring. Most places turn you away without even listening to your pitch. A few ask for references. When you admit you have none, they lose interest immediately. By the end of the first day, you are exhausted and discouraged. By the end of the second day, you are starting to panic. By the end of the third day, you understand just how precarious your situation is. You have £2 left between you. Arthur is feeding you out of charity, but that cannot last. You need work. You need money. You need a future. On the fourth day, James finds a job. It is at a factory that makes nails. The work is brutal. Standing at a forge for 12 hours a day, hammering red-hot metal into shape. The pay is 7 shillings a week. It is not enough to live on, but it is something. You are still looking. Every factory you visit says the same thing. No positions available. Come back next month. Try somewhere else. You start to feel invisible, worthless, like you have already been erased. On the 5th day, you find work as a loader at a warehouse near the docks. The job involves carrying heavy crates and sacks from wagons to storage rooms. The work is backbreaking. The pay is 8 shillings a week. It is not enough. But combined with James's wages, it might be enough to rent a room somewhere. That night, you and James sit with Arthur in his sitting room and do the math. 15 shillings a week between you. Rent for a single room in a boarding house will cost at least 4 shillings a week. Food will cost another 6 shillings if you are frugal. That leaves 5 shillings for everything else. Clothes, coal, soap, emergencies. It is not much, but it is survivable. Just barely. Arthur helps you find a room. It is in a boarding house 3 streets away. A grim, narrow building that smells like damp and boiled onions. The room is on the 3rd floor. It is smaller than the servants' quarters at Witham Park. The bed is lumpy. The walls are thin. You can hear every footstep, every conversation, every argument from the other tenants. But it is yours. No one can take it from you as long as you pay the rent. You and James move in on the 7th day, exactly as agreed. Arthur helps you carry your meagre belongings up the stairs. Before he leaves, he pulls James aside and speaks to him in a low voice. You do not hear what he says. But when Arthur leaves, James looks shaken. What did he say? You ask. James sits down on the bed heavily. He said to be careful, that Manchester is dangerous for men like us, that there are police who watch certain pubs, certain streets, that men get arrested all the time for, he stops, swallows, for being themselves. You sit beside him. Then we will be careful. We have tried being careful. It did not work. So we will try harder. James looks at you. His eyes are red-rimmed with exhaustion. Do you ever regret it, loving me? No. Even now, after everything. Especially now, you say. You take his hand. I have lost everything. My job, my home, my future. But I still have you. And I would rather have you and nothing else than have everything and not have you. James's face crumples. He pulls you close and holds you tightly, his face pressed into your shoulder. You can feel him shaking. You can feel his tears soaking through your shirt. You hold him and let him cry. There is nothing else you can do, nothing else that needs to be done. This, holding each other, surviving together, is all you have. And for now, it is enough. The weeks blur together. You wake at 5 in the morning. You walk to the warehouse through streets that are still dark. You work for 12 hours, loading and unloading crates until your back screams and your hands bleed. You walk home in the dark. You eat a meagre dinner, bread, cheese, sometimes a bit of bacon if you have been paid. You collapse into bed beside James. You sleep. You wake and do it all again. James's schedule is slightly different. He works from 6 in the morning until 6 at night. But the routine is the same. Work, eat, sleep, survive. On Sundays, you have half the day off. You spend it washing clothes, mending tears, scrubbing the grime from your skin. Sometimes you and James walk to a park on the edge of the city, a scrap of green in the midst of grey, and sit on a bench and watch children play. You do not talk much. You are too tired. But sitting together in the sunlight, watching the world move around you, feels like peace. One Sunday in June, you and James are sitting on your usual bench when a man approaches. He is middle-aged, well-dressed, and looks out of place in this part of the city. He stops a few feet away and tips his hat. "Good afternoon," he says pleasantly. You and James nod warily. Strangers do not usually speak to men like you unless they want something. "I could not help but notice you two," the man continues. "You seem like decent fellows, hard-working. I am always on the lookout for good workers. Might either of you be interested in better employment?" Your heart leaps. Better employment, better wages, maybe a way out of the warehouse. "What kind of work?" James asks carefully. The man smiles. "I run a boarding house for working men. It is a respectable establishment. I need someone to manage the place, collect rent, handle repairs, keep order. The pay is 12 shillings a week, plus free room and board. For 2 men, that is 24 shillings a week in value. Quite generous, if I may say so. It sounds too good to be true, which means it probably is. "Why are you offering this to us?" you ask. The man's smile widens. "Because I can see that you are men of a certain disposition. And I believe men like you deserve a chance to live without fear. My boarding house is a safe place. Do you understand?" You understand. This is one of those places Arthur warned you about. A place where men like you can live openly, without pretense. Which also means it is a place the police watch. A place that could be raided at any moment. A place where safety is an illusion. Thank you for the offer, James says politely, but we are not interested. The man's smile fades. You are making a mistake. Manchester is not kind to men like you. You need allies. Protection. We will manage, James says firmly. The man shrugs. He tips his hat again and walks away. When he is gone, you turn to James. Do you think he was legitimate? I think he was dangerous, James says. Men who offer too much always want something in return, and I am not interested in finding out what. You nod. You trust James's instincts. You have to. In a city like this, trust is all you have. Summer in Manchester is stifling. The factory smoke hangs in the air like a thick blanket, mixing with the heat until breathing feels like swallowing wool. Your room on the 3rd floor of the boarding house becomes an oven by midday. At night, you and James lie on top of the sheets, sweating, unable to sleep, listening to the sounds of the city that never quite goes quiet. Arguments through thin walls, footsteps on the stairs, the rattle of cartwheels on cobblestones, someone coughing endlessly in the room below. The work gets harder, or maybe you are just getting more tired. Your hands develop calluses on top of calluses. Your back aches constantly. You lose weight because you cannot afford to eat enough to replace what the work burns out of you. James loses weight too. His face becomes gaunt. The light in his eyes dims. You are surviving, barely, but surviving is not living. In July, Arthur invites you and James to his house for Sunday dinner. It is a small kindness, but it feels enormous. His 2 housemates are there, a man named Robert who works at the same textile mill as Arthur, and a younger man named Peter who works as a clerk in a shipping office. All 3 men are quiet, careful, watchful. All 3 men live the same precarious existence you and James live now. The dinner is modest. Boiled potatoes, cabbage, a small piece of mutton shared among 5. But it is more food than you have seen in one place in weeks. You eat slowly, trying to make it last. After dinner, the 5 of you sit in Arthur's small sitting room. Robert pours tea. Peter lights his pipe. The conversation is careful, neutral. The weather, the price of coal, a strike at one of the docks. Then Arthur says, I heard the police raided the Admiral Nelson last week. The room goes very quiet. The Admiral Nelson is a pub on the edge of the city. Everyone knows what it is. A place where men like you gather. A place where you can speak more freely, be more yourself, find others who understand. It is also a place that gets raided regularly. How many arrested? Robert asks. 8, Arthur says, all charged with gross indecency. The trial is next month. 8 men, 8 lives destroyed. You think about the man in the park who offered you work at his boarding house. You think about how close you came to walking into a trap. We need to be more careful, Peter says. He is only 22, younger than you, but he looks older. Exhaustion and fear age you quickly. We are already careful, Robert says tiredly. How much more careful can we be? We cannot stop existing. No, Arthur agrees, but we can stop gathering, stop drawing attention. The raids are getting more frequent. The courts are getting harsher. 10 years ago, a gross indecency charge might get you 6 months. Now it is 2 years minimum. Hard labor. And when you come out, he does not finish the sentence. He does not need to. You all know what happens when you come out. No work, no home, no future. Most men do not survive 5 years after release. They die of disease, poverty, or despair. So what are we supposed to do? Peter asks. His voice is tight, angry. Live alone? Pretend we do not exist? Die quietly so we do not inconvenience anyone? We survive, Arthur says firmly. That is what we do. We keep our heads down. We work. We stay out of the pubs and the parks and anywhere the police watch. We survive. That is not living, Peter says. No, Arthur agrees, but it is better than the alternative. The conversation moves on, but the weight of it stays with you. You think about it as you and James walk back to your boarding house. You think about it as you lie beside James in the dark, unable to sleep. You think about it the next morning as you walk to the warehouse in the pre-dawn grey. Arthur is right. Survival is all you have, but surviving is killing you slowly. By August, you are desperate. The warehouse work is destroying your body. Your back is in constant pain. Your hands shake from exhaustion. You are 24 years old and you feel 50. One afternoon, you are loading a particularly heavy crate when your back seizes. The pain is instant and excruciating. A hot spike that shoots from your lower back down your left leg. You drop the crate. It hits the ground with a crash. The foreman comes running. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouts. "I am sorry, sir," you gasp. "My back." "I do not care about your back. Pick it up." You try. You bend down and the pain flares white hot. You cannot do it. You physically cannot lift the crate. The foreman stares at you. Then he says, "You are done. Get out." "Please," you say. "I just need a moment." "I said get out. I am not paying a man who cannot work. You are finished." He turns and walks away. You stand there, bent slightly from the pain, surrounded by crates and men who will not look at you because they are afraid the same thing will happen to them. You limp out of the warehouse. You walk home slowly, each step sending jolts of pain through your leg. It takes you an hour to climb the 3 flights of stairs to your room. You lie on the bed and stare at the ceiling and try not to cry. You have just lost your job. You have no savings. James's 7 shillings a week will not cover rent and food for both of you. You are going to lose the room. You are going to end up on the street. James comes home at 7. He takes one look at you and knows something is wrong. You tell him. His face goes very still. "How bad is your back?" he asks. "Bad." "Can you work?" "I do not know. Maybe in a few days." "We do not have a few days," James says. He is not angry, just stating facts. "Rent is due in 5 days. We have 1 shilling left between us. I get paid in 6 days. That is 7 shillings. Rent is 4. That leaves 3 for food and coal. We cannot survive on that. Not for 2 people." You already know what he is going to say next. You can see it in his face. "I could send you home," James says quietly. "To your family. You could recover there, get healthy, maybe find work in your village." "No, Thomas, no," you say more firmly. "I am not leaving you. You cannot work. I cannot support both of us. What choice do we have? We figure it out. Together." James sits on the bed beside you. He takes your hand. His fingers are rough and scarred from the forge. "I love you," he says, "which is why I'm telling you to go. You have a family, a home, a place where people will take care of you. I have nothing. If you stay here, we will both end up on the street. And I cannot." His voice breaks. "I cannot watch you starve because of me." "I am not leaving," you say again. "We will find another way." "There is no other way." "Then we will invent one." James looks at you for a long moment. Then he laughs. It is a broken, desperate sound. "You are the most stubborn man I have ever met." "Good." He leans down and kisses you, soft and careful, like you might break. Maybe you are breaking, but not yet. Not today. That night, you and James lie in bed and make plans. Terrible plans. Desperate plans. Plans born of the kind of fear that comes when you can see the edge of the cliff and you're running out of ground. James will keep his job at the forge. You will find work that does not require heavy lifting, washing dishes, sweeping floors, anything. You will eat less. You will sell what little you own. You will beg Arthur for a loan if you have to. It is not a good plan, but it is a plan. And right now, a plan is all you have. The next morning, your back is slightly better, still painful, but bearable. You spend the day walking from shop to shop, asking for work. Most places laugh at you. A few tell you to come back when you are healthier. One shop owner, a baker, looks at you with something like pity and gives you a meat pie. You eat half and save the other half for James. By evening, you have found nothing. You limp home, exhausted and discouraged. James is already there. He looks even more exhausted than you feel. Any luck? He asks. No. You? I asked the foreman if there is extra work. Night shifts, weekends, anything. He said maybe next month. Maybe next month. That is 4 weeks away. You have 5 days before rent is due. We could ask Arthur, you say hesitantly. James shakes his head. He has nothing to lend. He is barely surviving himself. Then what do we do? James does not answer. Because there is no answer. You're out of options. That night you cannot sleep. The pain in your back is bad, but the fear is worse. You think about what happens when you cannot pay rent. You think about workhouses. You think about sleeping rough in winter. You think about James, who gave up everything to be with you, slowly starving because you cannot pull your weight. At some point, you must fall asleep because you wake to James shaking your shoulder. It is still dark outside. Get up, he says. We have to go. Go where? Just get up, trust me. You dress quickly. James leads you down the stairs and out into the pre-dawn streets. The city is just starting to wake. Bakers lighting their ovens, delivery carts rattling toward the markets. James walks quickly, purposefully, toward the docks. Where are we going? You ask again. I heard about a ship, James says. It is leaving for America this morning. They need workers, men to load cargo, clean the decks, work in the kitchens. The pay is not much, but it includes passage. We could start over, in New York or Boston, somewhere no one knows us, somewhere we might have a chance. You stop walking. You want us to leave England? I want us to survive, James says. And we are not surviving here. We are dying slowly. So yes, I want us to leave. We do not have money for passage. We would work for our passage. That is what I am trying to tell you. We work on the ship for free passage to America. And when we get there, he stops, takes a breath. When we get there, we find work, real work, and we build a life, a real life. Not this. He gestures vaguely at the grey streets, the smoke-stained buildings, the city that has ground you both down to nothing. Not this. You want to say yes. You want to believe that America is the answer, that crossing an ocean will somehow erase the past and give you a future. But you are also terrified of leaving everything you know, of crossing an ocean with no guarantee of anything on the other side, of failing in a new country just as you have failed here. What if it is the same there? You ask quietly. What if the laws are the same? What if we are still hiding, still afraid, still barely surviving? Then at least we will be doing it somewhere new, James says. At least we will have tried. You look at him. He is thin and exhausted and desperate, but there is also hope in his eyes, a fragile, flickering hope that you have not seen in weeks. All right, you say. Let us try. James's face breaks into a smile. It is the first genuine smile you have seen from him since the night you were caught at Witham Park. He grabs your hand and you run, actually run, toward the docks. The ship is called the SS Adriatic. It is massive, a steel giant towering over the dock, steam already rising from its funnels. The deck is swarming with workers loading cargo, crates, trunks, barrels, everything. James approaches a man in a dark coat who appears to be giving orders. Excuse me, sir. We heard you need workers. The man looks you and James up and down. He sees two thin, desperate men in threadbare clothes. He sees exactly what you are. Can you work? He asks bluntly. Yes, sir, James says. Both of you. Yes, sir, you say. Your back twinges in protest, but you ignore it. You understand you will work for passage only. No wages. You work 10 hours a day for the duration of the voyage. When we reach New York, you are on your own. No help finding lodging or work. Understood? Understood, James says. The man nods. Names? James Whitmore, Thomas Bainbridge. The man writes your names in a ledger. Report to the cargo hold. Someone will tell you what to do. We sail in 2 hours. If you are not on board by then, you are left behind. Yes, sir, Thank you, sir. You and James climb the gangplank. Your heart is pounding. You are about to cross an ocean. You are about to leave England, the only country you have ever known, forever. You think about your family in Derbyshire, your mother and father and 5 siblings. You will probably never see them again. You think about James's family in Manchester. He will never see them again either. You think about Arthur and Robert and Peter, who are still here, still surviving, still fighting their quiet daily battle for existence. You think about all the men who came before you, the ones who were caught and prosecuted and erased, the ones who survived by hiding, the ones who loved and lost and kept going anyway. And you think, maybe we can be different. Maybe we can be the ones who survive. Not by hiding, not by pretending, but by leaving. By finding a place where survival is not the only goal, where living, actually living, is possible. Maybe. It is a fragile hope, but it is hope. The ship's horn sounds. A deep, resonant blast that echoes across the docks. Workers shout. The gangplank begins to rise. The ship shudders and begins to move, pulling away from the dock with agonizing slowness. You and James stand at the rail, watching Manchester recede into the distance. The factories, the smoke, the grey streets where you nearly died. All of it shrinking, fading, becoming memory. James takes your hand. Right there on the deck, in front of everyone, he takes your hand and holds it. It is reckless, dangerous. Anyone could see. Anyone could report you. You could be thrown off the ship at the next port, arrested, imprisoned. But James holds your hand anyway, and you hold his. And for the first time in months, you feel something other than fear. The voyage takes 10 days. 10 days of hard work, loading and unloading cargo, scrubbing decks, hauling ropes, doing whatever the crew orders. Your back protests every day, but you work through it. James works beside you, his face set with determination. At night, you and James sleep in the cargo hold with the other workers. A mix of desperate men seeking new lives in America. Some are fleeing poverty. Some are fleeing the law. Some are fleeing things they will not name. No one asks questions. Everyone understands that the past is a place you do not talk about. There are other men like you on the ship. You can tell. The way they look at each other. The way they move around each other with careful awareness. The way they have learned to be invisible while still being present. You do not speak to them. They do not speak to you. But there is a recognition, a silent acknowledgement that you are all refugees from the same war. On the 7th day, a storm hits. The ship pitches and rolls. Waves crash over the deck. You and James and the other workers are ordered below and locked in the cargo hold for safety. The ship groans and creaks around you. Men pray. Men vomit. Men cling to whatever is bolted down and wait for the storm to pass. You and James huddle together in a corner. The hold is dark and cold and smells like salt water and terror. The ship rises and falls with sickening regularity. You are sure you are going to die. You are sure the ship is going to break apart and sink, and you will drown in the dark with 100 other desperate men. James pulls you close. His mouth is by your ear. If we die, he whispers, I am glad I am dying with you. We are not going to die, you say, but you hold him tighter just in case. The storm lasts 14 hours. When it finally passes and the crew unlocks the hold, you stumble out onto the deck on shaking legs. The sky is clear, the sun is shining, the ocean is calm. Half the cargo has been washed overboard, but the ship is intact. You are alive. 3 days later, the SS Adriatic sails into New York Harbor. You stand at the rail with James and watch the city rise out of the morning mist. It is vast, impossibly vast. Buildings taller than anything you have ever seen. Docks stretching for miles. Thousands of people moving like ants along the waterfront. This is America. This is your new home, whether you want it to be or not. The ship docks. You and James and the other workers disembark. An official stamps your papers. Thin, cheap documents that declare you legal immigrants with no money, no skills, no prospects. Welcome to America. You and James stand on the dock with everything you own in your canvas bags. You have no money, no contacts, no plan beyond survive. Where do we go? You ask. James looks around at the chaos of the harbour. I heard there are boarding houses for workers near the docks, cheap rooms. Maybe we can find something. You nod. You start walking. Into the city, into the unknown, into whatever comes next. The first boarding house you find is full, so is the second. The third has a room available. A windowless cell barely big enough for a bed. The landlord is a grey-haired woman with a thick accent you cannot quite place. She looks you and James up and down. You work? She asks. Yes, ma'am, James says. Both of you. Yes, ma'am. What kind of work? Any kind, you say. We are not particular. The woman nods. Rent is $6 a week. You pay every Monday morning. You miss one payment, you are out. No exceptions. Understood? $6 a week. You have no idea if that is expensive or cheap. You have no idea how much work pays in America. You have no idea about anything. Understood, James says. The woman hands you a key. Third floor, last door on the left. No noise, no drinking, no trouble. If I hear complaints, you are out. Yes, ma'am. You and James climb the 3 flights of stairs. The building smells like onions and tobacco and unwashed bodies. The walls are thin. You can hear every conversation, every argument, every cough and sneeze from the other tenants. You unlock the door to your room. It is tiny, smaller than the room you had in Manchester. The bed sags in the middle. The walls are water-stained. There is no furniture except the bed, but it is a room. It is shelter. For now, it is enough. James sets his bag on the floor and sits on the bed heavily. He looks exhausted. He looks defeated. He looks like a man who has fought too long and lost too much. You sit beside him. We made it. Did we? James asks quietly. We are here. We are alive. That is something. James nods. He does not look convinced. That night, you lie in bed beside James and listen to the sounds of New York. Voices shouting in languages you do not recognize. Horses and carts on the cobblestones. Someone playing a piano somewhere far away. It is overwhelming, alien, terrifying. But it is also new, and new means possibility. And possibility, however small, is better than the slow death you were facing in Manchester. You reach for James's hand in the dark. He squeezes back. Neither of you speaks. There is nothing to say. You are here. You are together. Tomorrow you will start looking for work. Tomorrow you will start trying to build something from nothing. Tomorrow you will find out if America is really the land of second chances, or just another place where men like you have to hide. But that is tomorrow. Tonight, you are alive. You are together. And for now, that is all that matters. The first month in New York is brutal. You and James find work at a garment factory on the Lower East Side. The work is different from what you knew in Manchester, but no less exhausting. You sit at long tables with dozens of other workers, men and women, young and old, speaking languages you cannot understand, and you sew buttons onto coats for 12 hours a day. Your fingers bleed. Your eyes strain in the dim light. You earn $4 a week. James earns $5 because he is faster. $9 between you. Rent is $6. That leaves $3 for food, coal, soap, everything else. You are still barely surviving. But barely is better than not at all. New York is different from Manchester in ways that matter. The city is bigger, louder, more chaotic. But it is also more anonymous. In Manchester, you were always aware of being watched. Every street corner had eyes. Every pub had informers. Here, in the crush of thousands of immigrants all trying to survive, you are invisible in a new way. Not because you are hiding, but because no one has time to notice you. Everyone is too busy fighting their own battles. This anonymity is a strange kind of freedom. You and James can walk down the street together without fear, not holding hands. That would still be dangerous. But together, side by side, 2 men among thousands. Unremarkable. You find a cafe near your boarding house where other men gather. Men who speak quietly in corners. Men who recognize each other through coded glances and careful words. It is not safe, exactly, but it is safer than anything you had in England. The police raid these places sometimes, just as they did in Manchester. Men get arrested, men disappear. But the spaces keep existing because the need for them keeps existing. One evening in October, you and James sit in this cafe drinking weak coffee. A man at the next table is reading a newspaper. You can see the headline: Vice Squad raids 3rd Avenue establishment. 8 arrests. The same story as Manchester. The same story as London. The same story everywhere men like you exist. It never ends, does it? You say quietly. James follows your gaze to the newspaper. No, it does not. Do you ever wish we were different? James looks at you. Different how? Normal. The kind of men who could marry women and have families and live without fear. James is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, I used to, when I was younger. I would lie awake at night and pray to be normal. I would beg God to change me, to fix me, to make me like everyone else. He pauses. But then I met you, and I realized I do not want to be different. I want the world to be different. I want to live in a world where loving you is not a crime, where we can walk down the street holding hands, where we can grow old together without hiding. But I do not want to change who I am, not anymore. You reach across the table and touch his hand, just briefly, just long enough to say, I understand. I feel the same. By winter, you and James have found a rhythm. You work, you eat, you survive. You have even managed to save a little money, $3 hidden in a jar under the bed. It is not much, but it is something, a small cushion against disaster. In December, a letter arrives from England. It is from your mother. You have no idea how she found you. You did not tell anyone where you were going. But somehow, she knew. Mothers always know. The letter is short. Your father is ill. Not dying, but not well. Your younger sister is getting married in the spring. Your mother misses you. She does not ask where you are or why you left. She simply says she hopes you are safe. She says she prays for you every night. She says she loves you. You read the letter 3 times. Then you fold it carefully and put it in your bag next to the Book of Common Prayer she gave you 2 years ago. James finds you sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. Bad news? No, you say. Just news. James sits beside you. Do you want to talk about it? You hand him the letter. He reads it silently. When he finishes, he says, Do you want to go back, to see them? I cannot afford passage. That is not what I asked. You think about it. Do you want to go back, to see your family, to stand in your childhood home and explain why you left, where you have been, who you are? No, you say finally. I do not think I do. That life, that person, he does not exist anymore. I cannot go back to being him. James nods. I understand. Do you? You ask. Do you ever think about going back? Every day, James admits. And every day I choose not to, because going back means pretending. And I am tired of pretending. You lean against him. He puts his arm around you. You sit together in the small, cold room and let the truth settle over you like snow. You are never going back. This is your life now. For better or worse, this is who you are. Spring comes. The city thaws. The days get longer. You and James keep working, keep surviving, keep building something that might eventually resemble a life. One evening in April, you and James are walking home from the factory when you pass a small park. There are families there, mothers with children, old men playing chess, couples walking arm in arm. It looks peaceful, normal. Can we sit for a while? James asks. You find a bench near the edge of the park. You sit side by side, not touching, just 2 men resting after a long day of work. The sun is setting. The sky is turning pink and gold. Do you remember Witham Park? James asks suddenly. Of course. Do you remember that first night in the butler's pantry, when I told you I did not want to be careful anymore? I remember. James is quiet for a moment. Then he says, I think about that night all the time. How terrified I was. How sure I was that we would be caught. How certain I was that it would end badly. He pauses. And it did end badly. We lost everything. But I do not regret it. Not for a second. Neither do I, you say. Even now? Even after everything? Especially now, you say. Because yes, we lost everything. But we also gained something. Each other. A life we chose instead of a life we were assigned. That has to count for something. James turns to look at you. His eyes are bright. It counts for everything. You sit in the park until the sun sets and the lamplighters come around. Then you walk home together, side by side, through streets that are starting to feel familiar. Not safe. Never quite safe. But familiar. Yours. The years pass. You and James move to a slightly better room, in a slightly better building. You find better work. James as a carpenter's assistant. You as a clerk in a shipping office. The pay is better. The hours are better. You are no longer quite so close to the edge of disaster. You make friends. Carefully, slowly. Other men like you who are also building quiet lives in the margins. You do not gather in large groups. You do not draw attention. But you exist. You persist. You refuse to disappear. Some years are harder than others. There are raids. There are arrests. There are men you know who vanish into the prison system and never come out the same. There are nights when the fear is overwhelming, when you lie awake certain that the police will come for you next. But there are also good years. Years when you and James take a Sunday off and ride the train out of the city to the countryside. Years when you save enough money to buy a camera and take photographs of each other. Evidence that you existed, that you were here, that you mattered. Years when you sit together in the evenings and read to each other and laugh and feel, for brief moments, like the world might be changing. Slowly, too slowly, but changing. In 1918, the war ends. Men come home. The city celebrates. You and James stand in the crowd in Times Square and watch people embrace and cry and sing. You do not embrace each other, not in public, but you stand close enough that your shoulders touch, and that is enough. In 1920, you receive word that your father has died. The letter comes from your sister, the one who got married 9 years ago. She does not ask why you never came home. She simply tells you the facts and says the family thinks of you often. She signs the letter with love. You mourn quietly. You cannot go to the funeral. You cannot explain your absence. So you light a candle in your room and say a prayer, and let yourself grieve for the father you loved and the life you left behind. James holds you while you cry. He does not say it will be all right. He does not offer empty comfort. He just holds you. And that is what you need. By 1925, you and James have been together for 20 years. 20 years of hiding and surviving and loving each other in a world designed to keep you apart. You are 43 years old. James is 44. You are both greying at the temples. You both move a little slower than you used to, but you are alive. You are together. Against all odds, you have survived. One evening, you are sitting in your apartment, a real apartment now, 2 rooms with a kitchen, on the 4th floor of a building in Greenwich Village. And James says, "Do you ever think about the other footmen, the ones at Witham Park?" "Sometimes," you say. "George, William, I wonder what happened to them. I wonder if any of them were like us," James says. "If any of them had what we have." "Maybe," you say. "I hope so." James nods. He is quiet for a while. Then he says, "We should write it down, our story, so someone knows, so we're not forgotten like all the others." Who would read it? "I do not know," James admits. "Maybe no one. Maybe someone 100 years from now, but it should exist. We should exist. On paper, in words, somewhere. So you start writing, not every night, not in any organized way, just fragments, memories. The night you met, the first time you kissed, the moment Lady Beatrice opened the door, the ship to America, the years of work and fear and small moments of joy. You write it all down in a notebook you keep hidden under the floorboards. You do not know if anyone will ever read it, but it exists. You exist. In 1930, James gets sick. It starts small. A cough that will not go away, fatigue, weight loss. You take him to a doctor. The doctor uses words like tuberculosis and sanatorium and not much time. You hear the words, but they do not make sense. James is only 49. He is supposed to have decades left. You are supposed to grow old together. But disease does not care about what is supposed to happen. James refuses the sanatorium. He refuses to die among strangers. He wants to die at home, with you. So you take care of him. You work half days so you can be home in the afternoons. You make soup. You read to him. You hold his hand. You watch him fade slowly, day by day, until he is almost transparent. A ghost in your bed. One night in December, James wakes you. It is 3 a.m. The room is dark and cold. You can hear his breathing, shallow, labored, wrong. "Thomas," he whispers, "I am here. I need you to know." He stops, coughs. It is a long time before he can speak again. "I need you to know that you were the best thing that ever happened to me. The only good thing. Everything else, all of it, was worth it because I had you." "Do not talk like that," you say. Your voice is shaking. "You are going to be fine. You just need rest." "Thomas." James's hand finds yours in the dark. "Let me say this. Please." You nod. Tears are running down your face, but you nod. "I am not afraid," James says. "I have had a good life, a real life, because of you. So do not be sad. Do not waste time being sad. Just remember me, remember us, and live, for both of us. Promise me." "I promise," you whisper. James smiles. You can barely see it in the dark, but you can feel it. "I love you. I love you too." James closes his eyes. His breathing gets slower, shallower, and then, sometime before dawn, it stops. You sit with him for a long time, holding his hand, memorizing his face, saying goodbye to the man who saw you when no one else did, the man who chose you over safety, the man who loved you for 25 years in a world that called that love a crime. When the sun rises, you finally let go. You stand up. You walk to the window and look out at the city waking up. People going to work, living their lives. The world continuing as if nothing has changed. As if James did not just die. As if a piece of your soul did not just stop beating. But something has changed. You have changed. You are a man who loved and was loved. A man who survived when so many others did not. A man who has a story worth telling. You think about all the footmen who came before you, the ones who were caught and punished, the ones who loved in secret and died alone, the ones whose names were erased from history. William Wright, who drowned in the River Aire. Henry Moss, who died at 34. Peter Caldwell and Edwin March, who disappeared. Frederick Trenton, who vanished after prison. All the men whose only crime was loving the wrong person. And you think about the ones who survived, the ones who found each other in the margins, the ones who built quiet lives in the shadows. Mrs. Winters and Miss Fletcher, who took tea together every evening. George and his friend Robert. Arthur and his housemates in Manchester. All the people who refused to disappear. You are one of them now. A survivor. A witness. A man who can say, "We were here. We loved. We mattered." You pull out the notebook from under the floorboards. You sit at the small table by the window. And you write. You write everything. The whole story. From the morning you arrived at Witham Park to the night James died. You write it for the men who came before you. You write it for the men who will come after. You write it so that someone, someday, will know that you existed, that you loved, that you survived. So tonight, as you lie in your clean bed with your indoor plumbing and your central heating and your legal marriage and your pride parades and your right to exist without fear, remember them. Remember Thomas and James. Remember the footmen who loved in the shadows of great houses. Remember the men who were erased from history simply for being themselves. They had no word for what they were. They had no rights, no safety, no future, but they had each other, and they refused to be erased. They left letters hidden in floorboards. They left photographs tucked in old books. They left stories scratched into prison walls and whispered to trusted friends. They left echoes of themselves in archives and court records and the margins of history. And now you know their names. Now you know their story. Now you are a witness to their existence. That is all any of us can ask for. To be remembered, to be seen, to matter. Thomas lived to be 68 years old. He never loved anyone else. He carried James with him every day until he died in 1950. He was buried in a small cemetery in Queens. His gravestone lists only his name and dates. It does not mention James. It does not mention Wytham Park. It does not mention the life he lived or the love he carried or the courage it took simply to survive. But we know. Tonight, sitting in the dark, we know. And that is enough. May your dreams be free of livery and service bells and the fear of doors opening at the wrong moment. May you sleep easy, knowing that the men who could not live freely would be astonished and grateful to know that you can. And may you wake tomorrow and live loudly enough for all of them. Good night and sleep well.